Hello, hello everyone. I see a lot of French names. Is there anybody from the English community here? Tonight is an English stream because we are going to welcome a very famous international figure, which is Tom Megens. I'll introduce him a bit later. First, just introduction. If there is people that are not familiar with the channel, so this is my channel. I'm Nicolas, also known as Spoon in the French community. I won Atlanta last year, and I play a lot of AOS. Besides that channel has started since like March last year, around that date, and we try to do a lot of different stuff about competitive Warhammer, competitive AOS mostly, and also sometimes a bit more fun things. Basically, you have every week since like start of September a show that is called Eavy Meta that you're in right now. So this is the 4th episode. And on top of that, you'll have some other streams like not battle report, but you have a stream where I stream my trainings, which are a bit different than a battle report because they are games where me and my opponents are going to explain what we think and try to confront our ideas with the opponent to try to see what's the optimal play in the matchup, to see how the matchup is supposed to go really, and try to not make any mistakes, any obvious mistakes, so that everybody can know how the matchup is going and we can have a proper training. So streaming that, so it's a real proper training, and how, in my opinion, you should train. You should not train by just repeating games and just chaining games with random people. You should just have an objective, like testing that list. How does the matchup? What is the matchup with against that other list? And you have to work with your opponent to train efficiently, which is what we try to do in those kind of streams. And other than that, most of the time I just do streams on events that happened recently or news, those kind of things. So welcome everyone. Really happy to have everybody here. This is the first English stream of the channel, so we'll see how it goes. I want to thank everybody that followed the stream, everybody that subs. Thank you all. It helps a lot. For the people that are new, the show is structured around a few sections. So this is the introduction. Then I'm going to talk with Tom about his news and who he is, those kind of things. After that, we are going to have a bit of analysis about tournaments. After that, there is a special section which is called Carblanch, which is Tom can choose any subject he wants and talk about it. After that, there will be questions from the community to Tom, and we'll finish with a tier list. Obviously, this time is going to be a bit special because Tom, on top of being a player, is a tournament organizer. So the show is structures. The show structures changed. I changed it a bit so that it reflects that, and you have more opinion from Tom about organizing stuff and all those things that you can expect from a tournament organizer. And that's basically it. So welcome, and I'm really happy to have you here. And we are going to welcome Tom. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Hey, good evening. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm perfectly fine. I'm really happy to have you here because I think you're one of my favorite person in the international scene. And in my opinion, you've done so much for the community. So I'm really, really happy to have the chance to have you here and to have the chance to present you to the French scene. And also, if anybody that is from the international scene here doesn't know you, also to present you to them. So can you introduce you a bit to for everybody that don't know you?
Yeah, I'm Tom Megens from the Netherlands. I've been in the scene about 4 years, I think. Started in AOS just at the end of AOS 2. Um, and I've grown out to be one of the largest tournament organizers in, minimally in the EU, mostly in the EU. Started with like 28-person events like a year or 4 years ago or something. And then it grew out to be a little bit larger because now I'm also the head referee of AOS Worlds. And I assist Games Workshop in the World Championships in Atlanta, for example. So, yeah, it's a hobby gone wild a little bit, but a super fun journey so far. And yeah, I love building communities and bringing people together to play this awesome game.
Cool. And also, recently you started a YouTube channel, right?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I just heard you talk about the your own channel. Obviously, because it's French, I don't tune in that much, but I like the idea of like trying to educate people about the game. Um, so about I think like 7 or 8 months ago, me and a couple of friends decided to start a bad rep channel ourselves, where we try to play more competitive games, and we try to give like battle reports that are in like the 20 to 45 minute window, because we personally don't really like the very long reports. We just want people to showcase. We want people to see what the armies can do. We want to showcase the armies, show some competitive lists. Um, and yeah, it's been super fun so far. It's costing a lot of time and money, but it's super fun. And our goal is not really to do this full time or anything. It's just a fun hobby on the side, because apparently TOing and playing ourselves isn't taking up enough time apparently. But yeah, super fun. It's for the people that don't know it, it's called Perpetual Tactics. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram. And yeah, we try to do one every other week. You might up the amount later, but for now, this is a fun way to do it. And yeah, that's the only way we want to do it. It has to be fun for everyone, because editing is a lot of work.
Oh yeah. If anybody is curious about your channel, you can type exclamation point Tom in the chat, and this should answer with the Tom's YouTube channel. So you can
Nice.
check it out, you can subscribe, you can just look at it. It's awesome. I really love the fact that you try to do really quicker battle report, because I mean, who has the time to watch 3 hour games? It's really long. And the fact that you can have that in 20, 30 minutes, I love it. And yes, doing those take a lot of time. That's why I don't do any editing at all. I just do live things, and then I put it on YouTube, and people will deal with that. It's it's too much time. I don't have that kind of time.
No, I agree. The guy I'm doing it with, Nick, he kind of wanted to learn to edit. So for him, it was just learning a new skill. So yeah, for him it was fine. And my background is audiovisual equipment, so AV. So I do most of the camera and the audio stuff.
That must help a lot. Whenever I started to look at what I needed to stream games, it was a bit of, well, there is so many things. What do I need to do? And thankfully, there is a lot of really good people in the French scene, like French War Game Studio or the Squigard, which is 2 big YouTube channel, and they helped me a lot to choose the right stuff and to basically to know everything that I needed, which helped a lot.
Yeah, and even then, you could, because we started off thinking we're going to have a certain format, and then once we were like trying things out, it changes. So even if you think you have the perfect setup or the perfect idea at the start, 2 or 3 months in, it can change.
Yeah, I'm living exactly that life. It's just like, okay, now that I have everything, I don't have everything because I want to make some changes. I want to adjust things. Yeah, it's at some point you have to just say stop. This is good enough for now. I'll
Yeah,
do that a bit later.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
all right, about news. Can you talk a bit about last tournament you attended as a player, but also last tournament you did as a TO?
Yeah, so my last tournament as a player, that's a good one. I've been mostly TOing. I have three types of events every year. I do what we call a threshold invitational, which is a 20-man single player format. I do them 4 times a year. And I basically invite the 20 most competitive players in our country, or sometimes across the border as well. And they come in and we play 5 rounds in 2 days. But because it's 20 very competitive players, every round feels like you're playing round, the Sunday of a GT instead of just everyone's probably every competitive player has been to a tournament, and like the first 2 rounds were, I don't want to say easy because maybe that's a little disrespectful, but not the most competitive it can be, or you're playing against maybe a beginner or something. And I really wanted to improve the quality of play in the country, in our community. So yeah, like I do a quarterly event that has the 20 most competitive players, and normally I play in those myself as well, but because a new edition just launched, I didn't really feel comfortable playing because I'm going to get so many questions, and I don't want my opponent to constantly have to wait for me. I have to leave my table, answer some questions, then come back. And also for myself, I'm going to be out of focus if I have to walk away from my game constantly. I'm just going to be, I'm going to forget my train of thought. I'm going to make mistakes. So in fourth edition, I haven't really played a tournament myself yet. I hope to do so soon. But with um, a tournament in November coming up, and I might play in myself. And then Atlanta, this year it's not going to be many tournament games, mostly TOing. But yeah, as you know yourself, I have TO'd a big team event last month with a little under 100 players, and I did one of those invitationals I just spoke about. So that's mainly the things I've been busy with. And then yeah, in 3 weeks I have another invitational.
So you did not have the time to play at the tournament, but you still play by your own, right?
Yeah, obviously I play weekly, and for the channel of course as well. Like I have to play games because we have to shoot content. The only problem I've kind of discovered with the channel is that I've played 6 armies in 7 weeks now, which is fun. But myself, I am someone that normally picks an army and then I play that for a season. And I've done well with that in the past in the community. I've been the number one ranked in the country for a while and stuff. So I can do well if I do it like that. But right now, I don't really know what army is my main army because I've been playing so many armies for the channel, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, my own tournament prep is kind of suffering a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand that. And what's your favorite army at the moment?
Ooh, my favorite. I really enjoy Cruel Boys and Seraphon at the moment. But my favorite army traditionally has been Beast of Chaos, but I haven't really picked them up a lot, only for one battle report. But yeah, we're probably going to get rid of that because yeah, next year it's going to be gone, and I don't really want to invest a lot of time into that right now. But my main army in third edition has been Khorne, but I've been playing that for the entire past 18 months. So I've decided to put that away for a little bit. And I've been playing Cruel Boys and Seraphon, which is weird because Seraphon wasn't doing that well, but my list that I've been doing okay with went up 80 points. So I was like, why?
Yeah, I saw that Agradons went up 20, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was playing 2 units of 6 and the Agrodon leader. So that was already like the first 50 points. So yeah, that hurt a little bit. So now my list doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, you have to play Croak. He did lose a lot of points, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think Croak is good enough. You don't have once your invocations are out, he doesn't really have a lot to do because your spells are okay but not super. And I just really like the Salon with the recursion. And you don't want to play both because you don't have enough spells.
Yeah, I do agree that it's hard to put both. But I think most people will be happy to not see Croak for a while. I think.
Yes. Yeah. I've also never played Seraphon before. First edition is my first time, and I like it because it's more like the old Kodos Claw way of playing. It's more like combat-y, do the run and charge instead of just being a magic castle. Because that wasn't really my style of play.
Yeah, the non-interactive battles. I think there is less of that in fourth. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
There is still, but
Yeah.
there is less of that. Less of just
Definitely.
the opponent does things and you just wait and see your models dying.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, the Hurricane and the Foxes, they sometimes have that effect. I've
Yeah.
seen games against like players that are not very experienced, and that is still very frustrating for them.
Yeah, the wind stuff is definitely a problem in my opinion in the game right now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. They did just made a huge patch for the binary stuff mostly, which was very welcome. So we'll see what the next patch is about.
Yeah, definitely. I do like I think the armies that have been patched are still a little bit too strong, but I do like going down in steps instead of just throwing an entire army down the drain because I don't really want an army to be completely punished for being too good.
Yeah, and to me it was more a matter of not being too good, but being too frustrating to face. Because having a stronger army in front of you is not a problem. It's okay. It happens. Armies are stronger than others. That is expected.
Definitely.
Nobody wants a perfectly balanced game. We don't want to play chess. But it's really about the frustration on playing against something. And I found out that old Night Hunt, even to a lesser extent, the Night Hunt now, and Luminate Wind are really frustrating to play against because you feel like you are not playing the same game as the other one.
No, definitely. I've also seen some KO games that even though KO are not doing that great, the ability to be able to redeploy and then suddenly be outside of 10 or 12 or 10, 11 inches away in your opponent's turn. I've seen some games where someone was, for example, playing Crew Boys and they didn't really have any shooting units or they were shot off already, and there's no way you could get close, which is a frustrating. There's just a couple of frustrating game mechanics. I just feel.
Yeah, I do agree. And just to finish on that section, there is a lot of people that don't really like that all abilities have now dice rolls bind into them, almost all. My position has a bit evolved on that. It's more like if I can adapt, I'm okay with that. But you have some instances where you just can't, like combat abilities on a 4-up strike first. Well, at some point, I just need to charge you and I'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a gamble. Well, I mean, just like I said, I like playing Crew Boys, so I know all about rolling dice to see if you can do something.
Yeah, but I mean that's your whole thing. So I'm
Yes.
kind of more okay with Crew Boys because that's really your whole thing. That's something like Bellacore, having the 3 strike first unit. You're just like, all right, you have a castle. Well, I'm going to charge you and see what happens.
Yeah.
Not a great feeling. But hey.
No, definitely. And also one more addition, actually. Last battle report I played, it's not out yet, but I played Slanesh. And actually that was very fun with the new update. Very, very fun army. So I might pick that up for a little bit.
Does the changes on Slanesh really make the Slanesh player feel a bit better? Because you're not stronger. It's just like your opponent has to take a bit more risk, but you're not really stronger.
No, but I felt more comfortable giving away a second temptation dice because I know you're going to roll 2 dice, and there's actually pretty good odds of you rolling one or two, and still not getting that 12-inch counter charge. So it takes away some of the hey, I have to buff you to get something myself type of feeling, and it also meant my opponent a couple times needed a crucial roll. And he was like, am I going to roll this dice? Because if I roll a 1 or a 2, I'm screwed. So it kind of puts the mental load on your opponent instead of on the Slaanesh player.
Yeah, that's good. Because I always felt like Slaanesh Battle Tome was cool, but I agree that the ability was like, why does everybody has something and we just have something that gives the opponent
Yeah.
an advantage, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And then you're playing a couple of monsters, maybe. You know, a lot of players are playing Chillaxi or a Keeper, and they have like some big damage attacks. And then already knowing one of those attacks is going to be saved because of the dice you gave away, you know, it can be a little frustrating.
Yeah, personally, I use it for the Glutos shooting attack.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I hate that thing.
No rent. Yeah.
No rain damage 6.
Yeah, I had the Glutos and 10 Twin Souls on an objective, and that just doesn't move.
Yeah, that doesn't die.
No, it was great.
Yeah, all right. So let's go to the next part. So usually this is the part where we analyze tournaments, and for this time, I felt like the smart thing to do was to reanalyze the Open Alliance GT, Team GT, so that we can talk about a bit of the meta, but also about how is it to TO an event, a team event, and what did you like about that first big event in the 4th edition? Well, everything about that. So first of all, when you saw the lists, if we put something on the side like Lumineth and Nighthaunt, how did you feel about the meta distribution?
I was surprised that there weren't really any. Some of the armies weren't there. You said put aside Light on the Lumineth. One of the things that stood out to me is there wasn't even more. I expected more of those, actually.
Yeah, in all of
I'm
them, right?
checking out. I had a list somewhere with the meta representation. I'm looking it up. Here we go. Yeah. Let's see things that stood out. Yeah, I expected. Fire Slayers haven't really been popular in the amount of times I've seen it at a tournament, but I think it's a good team army and it got some play in this edition. So seeing only one, which was from a player that I know that always plays Fire Slayers, so that was a surprise. But none of the really top teams brought it, which was surprising to me. I expected more OBR, and I expected a couple of Nagash plus 30 Cavalots, but I didn't expect 4 of them. But that's probably me because I've been seeing them a lot more in different tournaments as well. So maybe that went a little under my own radar. Yeah, mostly I like the split. A couple of armies like Sylvaneth, they were pre-update, so they were struggling. So I understand there weren't a lot of those. Seraphon, same way. Iron Jaws, Fleshy Ducours. I think it was Miladin was the only Fleshy Ducours player, and he says he's a big fan, but statistically they haven't been doing very well. So I didn't have many surprises, but obviously it was also the first big team event that I've been checking or really reviewing the lists for. So I didn't really have much to compare it with yet.
Yeah, that's for sure. I was really surprised about the low number of Catacross because as much as I feel like Nagash 30 Cavalos is strong, I also feel like Catacross is really, really strong. And it's not the same matchups. It's not the same way to play the game. But I was really, really surprised because Catacross with a good list, you can put that in almost anything in the game.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you can pick the battle plans you're on.
Yep.
So, yeah, very good. The one thing that stood out to me is only 4 Zinch. I believe there was only 4 Zinch or 5 Zinch or something. That was very low for me because I think that the double chicken horror list, that particular list is one of the best lists in the game.
Yeah, I agree that Zinch is really strong, but I feel like Zinch has always been a kind of a player's army. So I'm not shocked that people are not taking it on top of what they usually play. But yeah, I do agree that Zinch is really, really good. Even after the battle scroll, I think it's still really good.
Yes, it got buffed.
Kinda, it got buffed and nerfed.
Yeah, sure. But I think the burning buff is pretty.
It's pretty amazing.
They'll survive. They'll survive some points.
Oh yeah, they are a bit nerfed because of manifestation nerf, which is normal, I'd say.
Yeah, but in teams, not even every Zinch list had the Morbid, so they've already shown that they can play without, I think.
Oh yeah, and I really like your choice to only include one specific manifestation per team, because people had to think a bit more about other manifestations. What did you think about that choice?
Yeah, I was very happy with that. I think for Worlds, going, talking about the future a little bit, with 8 players, I think you can have 2. I mean, you have to have 2 because you can't really. Some of the faction ones are almost unplayable. I think for 8-man, maybe you do 2, limit of 2, but I think for the 6-man, 5-6-man team tournaments, 1 is perfect. And I've had a couple of players came up to me and they're like, "Hey, well, I actually discovered how much I like different lores as well." Instead of just auto taking the Morbid one, like a lot of players that discovered the Forbidden Power one and realized how good it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that Morbid was the obvious one, but the easy one, because it's just damage, damage, damage. And Forbidden Power, we've had a player play that for like, I think 1 month, and he was like, it's really, really good because you have massive bases, which plays really insanely in the denial game. It's less like upfront damage, but it's just, no, you cannot do that because I have 4 massive bases on top of my units. I was really happy about that decision because it encouraged a lot more variation, I think. And
and the Zinch list, the Night Hunt, the Sylvaneth that's probably upcoming right now. They all Lumineth. They all have teleports, so the shards is even functionally pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think the shard is kind of the only. Does it move whenever it's on the board? I think so. It moves.
No, you teleport one of the pieces in the movement phase.
Yeah. So you can move it on the turn that you set it up, right? Because it's not a move.
Yeah, I don't think it has it's not a core move. I think.
Yeah,
so
I think you can move it on the turn you set it up.
Yeah.
And you can also set it up in combat range because it's not a moving one.
Yeah.
So I really like it. I really like that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Hello, you have Manuel Mathieu back in the channel. That says hi, and also a lot of other people. Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. So about the event, about how the 4th edition changes. Did you feel like a change in the TOing part or in the judging part with 4th? Is there something that is different, that is better or worse? What did you think?
Well, I think because that isn't specifically about 4th, but any new edition gives every TO a lot of work at the start because I don't really want to say this, but I'm like the AOS Worlds referee. I ref for Games Workshop and I ref locally, and I get between about 15 and 30 rules questions per day from TOs around the world, players, local players, people from my local club. I've had nights where there's when I know there's a certain tournament or there's a club night somewhere, I know I'm going to get a call at some point from someone. So the start of an edition for me, the position I'm in, is extremely hectic. It's It's answering a lot of questions, especially with the manifestation rules that came out that were not very clear to everyone at the start, which I think still is still the case for many people. I mean, I have to look a lot of stuff up still as well. But I do have to say that the way the fourth edition rules are written, I think if you look 6 or 8 months from now, with everything being an ability, everything being keyworded, it's going to make my job a lot easier. So right now, I have to invest a lot of time, but I think it means down the road, it's going to be a lot clearer, a lot easier for me to be a TO, basically, because everyone's going to understand how everything works. Like unless, and which I don't hope, they're going to throw everything. The new JHB is going to change stuff, but I don't think so. I think for manifestations, they're going to function the same way, but they're going to get some new rules, which is at least what I'm hoping for. And it's going to make my job a lot easier, I think. And what's been a lot easier is list checking. 3.0, 2.0. You could make a lot more mistakes in your list than in fourth. Right now, it could be a bug in the app that makes you put a unit in a regiment, excuse me, that maybe shouldn't belong there. Or I don't know, you didn't realize you have a War Master, but that's super easy to check. So that's also something that got a lot easier.
Yeah, I do agree, and I really like what they did about list building. I know a lot of people are not so down on it because it felt like for them that you lost a bit of flexibility, you lost a lot of weapon choices, but in the real,
Yeah.
you did not have any choices before. There was just an optimal one.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, I talked with people that said, "Well, we only have 3 artifacts. I'd rather have 6." Yeah, but last time we had 6. You only pick one. I'd rather have 3 that are pickable than 6 that you just pick one and it's always the same.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I understand if you like maybe a narrative game or something, you like a little bit more choice. But in the end, I do think some of the armies, for example, Lumineth, some of the Death armies, Seraphon, they could have used a couple more spells, because now you have to bring manifestations to actually make your caster use all his spell slots, which I don't really like a lot. Because now it's also going to, let's say manifestations are proving to be maybe a little bit too much. You can't really nerf them too much, because then all the big casters just have nothing to cast. Let's say you limit them to 1 per wizard or something. It's just not possible. So I think some of the magic armies could have maybe used a couple more spells. For myself, I like the list building right now, but I do agree, especially for some armies, it could be maybe more limiting than for other armies. So I understand people being maybe a little frustrated. But yeah, I think overall for the balance and game design and making it easier for me to check lists, but also for people to write lists, it's been better. Although, especially at the start of fourth, it did really focus on or gave people the motivation to spam.
Yeah, but I think that will always be the case if you have flagrant imbalance in a book, which is kind of expected at the launch of an edition where you redo
Yeah,
everything. It's a bit of a delusion to think that Games Workshop or any game company, for that matter, can just perfectly balance a game whenever it's launched. If you take a look at the video game industry, you have a day 1 patch and you have a 1 month patch, just
yeah,
because you cannot test everything. The amount of game that the people internally can do versus the amount of game that are played within the first month of the game is just, there is no comparison in that amount of games. And there is almost I have no recall of a game that launched perfectly for a multiplayer game. So
no,
I do not hold that against Games Workshop, because I think they actually did a pretty decent job. But yeah, one thing that I
I think
found out.
people most of the time people don't understand. You can have a group of playtesters, for example, and they can playtest your stuff, but people have to imagine that they have to playtest 26 armies in a very limited amount of time, and that's, let's say you have, I don't know, 12 playtesters. I don't even think they have that many, but let's say you have 12 playtesters and they playtest all these armies, and you have like a sample size of like maybe 40 games of every army, and you tweak some stuff, and then you throw it into the wild, and within 2 weeks suddenly people have 400 games of each army played. So you're going to find out about mistakes, imbalances, whatever, so much faster when once it's launched into the big, universe. So yeah, and right now they've been patching very quickly as well. So compared to, because you haven't played in 2.0, I think, right?
What?
You play in Age of Sigmar 2 already? No, right? You started in 3?
I played a bit at the end of 2. Yeah.
Yeah, because then we really had to wait 6 months every time for an update. An FAQ, an update, or whatever. So it's improved a lot already. Like there's actual patches now instead of just a complete overhaul every 6 months.
Yeah, it's been really better, I think. And there is one thing when I read the rules about fourth, and I really want your opinion on that. I felt like the rule. I don't know if it's something they did consciously or not, but I felt like the rule were designed so to reduce friction between the two players. Just the simplest example is the redeploy. Just in third edition, you had to ask the opponent player, "Do you want to redeploy each time you move something?"
Yeah.
And I felt like just reducing the phases, like start and phase, those kind of things, or the redeploy, or the fact that it's very clear that I do all my stuff, you do all your stuff. I really love that because I felt like it reduced a lot the friction between the two players. Did you experience that?
Yes, I think it has proven to decrease the amount of gotchas while still keeping a big room for skill expression. So the redeploy, the countercharge, the governing fire, they are all avoidable. But it's there, but it's still a way you can express skill. So yeah, I really liked and it's also made it much more interactive as well. Because if you want, you can. I think that's true, right? Yeah, if you want, you could do something every phase, provided you have something that shoots
Yeah, yeah.
in your opponent's turn as
You
well.
have a
So
mini turn in the opponent's turn, which was, I think, the goal when they made that. But
yeah,
also that made CPs a really important resource, which I love
yes,
because
yeah,
you really add in third edition the have and the have nots on that front, because you had factions that had like a lot of CPs and
yeah,
even not really much use for all of those. Now everybody is kind of the same amount. You have some tiny exception, but it's not really a big deal, and you have to manage that.
yeah, yeah. When fourth edition launched, they said that there will never be an ability that adds extra command points or something. I'm curious to see if that's going to stay the same, but I hope so, because right now I think it works well.
Oh yeah, I really hope they stick to that, because it just feel great that you and your opponent have the same amount, which is also great because when you were playing first in third, you might just have 3, right? If I recall correctly, it's so long ago.
Yeah,
Three,
heroic action, and then
yeah, and you might need your heroic action. It was really kind of all over the place because some armies really needed their heroic action, so they could not have a CP, and
yeah,
some armies did not have anything, so they could just roll for CPs and just see what happens. And yeah, I really love that part because you have this kind of the same resources. If you're underdog, you have one more, which is strong. It's really strong.
yeah.
But I did not see so far somebody trying to exploit the underdog thing. Well, not by much.
No, I've done it a couple times where I could, let's say my opponent scored 8 because he couldn't score more, and I could go for a risky battle tactic or score 6 or score, let's say 6 and become the underdog. I went for that because it's almost better. The 2 points, I would maybe, there are games I would pay 2 victory points for a command point because I could deny 4, for example. So I've seen it go a couple times. The only thing I don't like right now, battle tactic, is I've also seen a lot of games as a TO where someone gets on the back foot early and there's just no way of getting back because you can't really double. You can't afford to double turn because of the point.
Yeah, we were talking earlier. I think like double are really common from the first to the second turn, but after that,
Yeah.
it's so hard.
Yeah. Unless you're a very comfortable position, or you can end the game right there, or almost end it.
Yeah, but you really have to be sure that you do, because if you don't, you're just screwed.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't think they've reduced the amount of double turns. They've changed the timing of them, and what I liked about the double turn, it could sometimes it was a way for you to get back into a game, which is now almost impossible in some situations. So, but we'll see how that. I think that's also due to some of the imbalances in the game. So I think when the game's better, more balanced, you might not be taking this many doubles. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, sorry. I really like that they make that change to the double turn, having you to sacrifice something, and I think that's a really smart idea. It might not be fine tuned to the perfection that it needs for the game, but it's also, as you said, all of the game was really imbalanced at the start, so it's really, you have a lot of smoke in the air, so you cannot really see if that change is good enough or not, because of all these big armies that are really strong, just make a lot of smokes and you cannot see the battlefield. You cannot see what's happening.
No, definitely. One thing they could maybe consider is making it so that whatever, let's say your opponent doubled you, that maybe you can pick a battle tactic. For example, if your opponent took a double turn earlier in the game, something like that. So make a mechanic where you can pick a battle tactic if it's meant to be used to get you back in the game, something like that. But we're so early, we'll see.
Yeah. And there is I think the game will change a lot just on balancing, and we can see after that.
Yeah.
I think.
And new books.
Yeah,
although, what did you think about Skaven book being almost, well, I don't want to say identical to the index because that's not true, but being, a lot of Skaven players I know were very disappointed because they thought they were going to be playing new rules, and they got kind of the same thing.
I mean, it's rough because you kind of screwed if you do, screwed if you don't. Because if you're so close to the release of the faction pack that if you change everything, it's like you're throwing away so many things that you worked on already, because you worked a lot on the faction packs. Skaven changed quite a lot for faction packs, and you kind of throwing that away. The problem, I think the main problem is that they are selling rules 40 euros, and there is not a lot much of it.
Yeah.
So I don't have an issue with the Battle.tom not being different. I have an issue about rules being that expensive to play a game which I already pay models to play.
Yeah, don't get me started on the war scrolls behind not being.
Oh yeah, I've talked about that.
Oh, that's so frustrating. Especially like for people who don't know, Games Workshop has a TO program where you can get codes for books if you're a TO. So for me personally, it doesn't really matter because Games Workshop helps me with that. But I can imagine as a player, you've just had all these indexes come out, and now you barely haven't even learned those. And an index gets a new book, an army gets a new book, and suddenly you can't really check what your opponent's doing. And because the edition is so new, your opponent can easily get something wrong without it being the intention, and you can't really verify anything unless you constantly ask, "Hey, sorry, can I read your rules?" Which, yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, there was so many possible things to do it properly, and yeah, they just chose to do that. And
Yeah,
I calculated the amount of money you have to pay to just have access to everything, so to play the game properly, and it's like 300 or 400 euros a year, which is
yeah, yeah,
crazy. It's
yeah. That's
crazy amount of
crazy.
money.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy, and it's already, like you said, it's an expensive hobby, man. Um, I don't know about you. It's an addictive hobby in some ways, where I think it's a problem because I've seen people that might not have, you know, all the money in the world to spend, but they still have like four, five, six armies. Because how many people do you know that have one army?
I think zero.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, it's getting that dopamine every time you buy a new model, starting a new army. I've been victim of it myself, buying an army and like 2 weeks later being like, why did I buy this army? It's just, oh, it was cheap. Okay, but why? Now it's sitting in my closet. Maybe that's why I started a bad rep channel. Maybe I have an excuse. I don't know. But yeah, it's an expensive hobby already, and making it less accessible, I think it's a huge mistake. But yeah, there's not much you and I are able to do about that. So
Yeah, and even you could even just sell codes for like 5 or 10 euros. It would be a bit
hmm
better. It would still be shit and a shit move, but
yeah,
it would still a lot better because a lot of people just want the code. I'm going to buy a book that I'm going to throw away in 3 years. I'm not going to open it. I'm just going to take the code, enter it in the app so that I can play your game. It feels so wrong. Yeah.
yeah. I've heard in the past that the books are actually one of the biggest income sources for GW. So yeah, that's probably why they won't never do digital codes.
I think this is something that is, I mean, you have a budget to spend on things or a certain amount of money, and if people are not buying books, I think they are buying miniatures instead. So
Maybe, but maybe it's a margin thing. I don't know.
yeah, but it's still shitty things to do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's dumb. It's I just cannot understand. Like I imagine like a GW meeting room, and then all like the big shots sitting at a table, and then someone comes in and like, "Hey, I got a great idea," and then everyone's like, "Yes, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put all the war scrolls behind the table." I don't see how that happened.
Yeah, and all this is going to do is going to force people to go to illegal services.
Yeah,
And to be fair, I won't blame them because
no, no.
four
But
hundred
they're not
euros
very
a
available
year.
right now because the Wahapedia person that monitored Wahapedia he's I believe he's been sick for a while, so that is not really updated. So right now, I'm not sure where you can actually easily get the rules.
I don't know, but people will find a way. If there's something that I learned on
I
the
hope so.
internet, is that people will find a way.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. Or create one.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's a bit like the Spotify and all those kind of things, or Netflix, or as long as there is not a thing that make it easy and cheap to use, people are going to find a way to do it. And
yeah,
we had something that was somewhat cheap to use before, so that I think people were okay to use the app before, but or even people would have been okay to just pay a monthly fee, a reasonable
yeah,
monthly fee. This just feel like 400 euros a year is crazy amount of money to just have rules.
yeah, yeah. I agree. The only thing I want to, I don't know if people are going to listen to this, but I've seen on Twitter people or on other social medias, Facebook a lot, personally attack people from GW.
Oh
Also
no.
on in social channels about decisions that the company makes. and I just I'm because of Atlanta and other stuff. I work with people from GW a lot, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that they're just all people that love this hobby and like want everyone to have a great time. And um, these types of decisions are made by someone in corporate high up. So never attack one of the GW employees about this because it's dumb. Just saying that. Just saying. Probably no one in this chat is doing those things, but just putting it out there.
Yeah, it's always a good thing to remind everyone, because the people that took this decision, you won't know them, you will never know them, and you have no way of contacting them. So be respectful. That's everything that everybody wants. And probably a lot of people at GW just want the same thing as you and are a bit shocked as the same as you. So don't expect that they took the decision and everybody in GW's office is just like, haha, we're going to make so much money, because they don't.
No.
They really don't. Which is a totally different topic that we won't cover right now.
Yeah, maybe not for this one. Yeah.
All right. Back on the topic. So you did for me, was it the first big team event on Fourth? I think so. It felt like it.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the first big one because Six Nations still has to happen, and we had the Masters in the US.
Yeah.
But I believe it was smaller. So and it was really fun to see a lot of Worlds players come in because that gives me a lot of valuable data, and also means that I can really see what kind of questions I get, because it's a great representation of both competitive and casual players at this event.
Yeah. So you had at the event a scoring system that is a bit different of what we use in France. So we were everybody's starting at 20 points, and you add or subtract the difference in points you have with your opponent, depending on if you win or lose the game. What it felt like games were quickly becoming 40-0. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I've tried a couple of 20-0 systems. Didn't really like them. And then Gareth, one of my refs from the AOS Worlds team and the referee of Old Town Throwdown, and also someone who helps in Atlanta, you know him. But for people who don't, he came up with this 40-0 system that he was going to try, and I thought, let's try this for a bit, and then we can tweak it. I'm just not sure what's the right system at this time. I agree with you that I don't like. It doesn't matter that there are a lot of 40-0s because they would have been 20-0s in a different system as well. I think if you beat someone with like 30 points, it's pretty fair, or 25 points. It's pretty fair if it's a 20-0. But 40-0 feels like a massive loss, and it was maybe too easy to see a 40-0 written down, and players might feel disheartened by that because they felt like shit. There's a 40-0, which maybe feels worse than a 20-0.
Maybe in France we have the system, which is I think not that good, but the system is like it's like the old 20-0 systems, except you divide by 4 the points, so that if you want a 20-0 you have to have I think like 37 points difference.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's really hard to go 20-0, which I don't know. It's really about what do you value in the game as a result, and and it's also the first one, so it's really hard to know because the armies will evolve and the scoring difference will change a lot,
and players will learn.
Yeah, and you can. I think the 40-0 system that you used might become really good after some point, because the games will become closer probably as people learn. So. Hopefully, because what happened in my games is like I did, I think, 440-0s with Korn. And I had a player which was playing Night Hunt, and he did also 440-0s, but the game were massively different.
Yeah,
I
of
just did
course.
40-0 with 20 points different each time, almost. But when he won, the Night Hunt player, he won by a lot more. And it just felt like the score was not reflecting correctly the difference in those two games,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I understand.
I don't know if it's
Definitely.
a big deal or not. It's just it felt that way.
Well, what do you think about a system where you get points for a win and then also points for every tactic you get? Because that's something I've been playing with a little or thinking about. What's your opinion on that? So a
I
win is a win, doesn't matter how big.
I really like it. Um, I really like the win first, and I also would like to probably have it in teams also. You know, and globally, the fact that the team wins the round should probably, in my opinion, maybe um, be before points total. But that's
Hmm.
another discussion. For the player, I really in France, we used to have singles just having on points, and we switched that to wins, and it felt already a lot better because people were bringing lists that were more balanced. Because
Hmm.
if you just go for points, you might as well just queue your list to the maximum, and if you get lucky, you just do 420
Yes.
and the last one doesn't really matter. And
No.
so we
Or you can
switched.
submarine.
Yeah, and we switched to wins, which was good for singles. For teams, it's a bit different because bringing skewed list is expected because you do the
Yeah.
pairings, right? But still, I really like to put the value on. It's hard, but you would
The
be
only thing
able.
you have to take into account for Worlds, for example, is you don't have more than 32 teams. So you're playing 6 rounds. So if it's wins first, after round 5, you have a winner.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfectly fair.
So the sixth round doesn't do anything.
Yeah, which is kind of a problem.
I think so, unless you decide to play 5 rounds. But I kind of like the 6 because people
Yeah,
are
yeah.
traveling for a long time to get there.
Oh, for sure. What they did in 40K is I think there are more games, but they do pool into Swiss.
Yeah, but more teams as well.
Yeah, they have a lot more
Uh,
team. I don't remember
I
how many, but
I've
they had a
with
lot.
a couple of the captains that are very statistically focused. I made some mocks where like some mock drafts where we did pools, but having only 28 teams. I mean, 28 is already a problem when you're making pools, but having so few teams makes it very likely you're playing in like a country twice, which I don't really like.
Yeah, I do agree. I love for the hype of the event. I love the bracket thing with seeding. Obviously, we cannot do that, but I really love the bracket
Well,
of the seedings.
we could seed it in such a way that you could look at past results only for round one pairing, where you made like seeds, like the so you don't get France or Denmark or England playing each other round one. But also, like me personally, because I'm not invested into the tournament that much. I mean, I am the TO, but like I'm not playing, so I don't have the emotional investment. I didn't really mind having a Denmark England round one because that made the tournament very exciting until round 6.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's a matter of what do you want for the event globally to look like, and can we can we do better? Because it's always easy to imagine something else, but is it really better than what we have? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. I always like to try to think about new ways of doing things, but sometimes these are not better.
No.
But yeah, it's fun to think about those things and to try
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to make the event better and better and better.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always open to improving, but it has to be an improvement. It shouldn't be a change just to make a change.
Yep. What else about that event? Is there something that you would want to change about what you did for the future? For the event?
Like if I did the team if I did this team
If you
event
redid,
again.
yeah.
Good question. I was actually kind of satisfied with how it all went. So I don't think so. I mean, I would have liked to have more data, to have a good scoring system, but we have already discussed that a little bit. I went with what felt right, and I agree with you that when things balance out more, I think it's a better system. And maybe not. Maybe I'll learn that it's not and find something better. But because I don't really have an alternative right now, I don't think I would change a lot compared to how we've run it now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great event. As every time I'm going to Amsterdam to your events, I
Thank
think
you.
the first time I went was last February, so pretty late, but last February, and I was amazed because I think it was one of the most, if not the most, well organized event I've ever been.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, and you deserve it, and I think I share that opinion with a lot of players, at least in friends that I know. And we are all really eager to come back. I think you have an event in March.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know, I've been doing it under the Alliance Open banner. A couple of the guys in the team they didn't want to continue after this year, so I've decided to take over the AOS part myself and put it under the Threshold Tactics banner. So next year in March 29th and 30th, I'm going to have my first Threshold Tactics GT. We're probably going to call it the Gauntlet in the same venue. So we the only problem is before we had a company that did all that. Right now it's just a proprietary company, so it's me under my own name. So it does mean that I'm going to try this in March. But yeah, as you can probably tell from the people who've been there, the venue is pretty expensive. So I need like at least 130 people in that room to not lose like money. So I'm going to try it in March, and if I don't get the amount of people I need, I'm not sure if we can come back there. So hopefully people will show support and turn up. But yeah, it's going to be the first one under my own banner with the guys from Threshold.
Be sure to send the link whenever we can buy the invitation to the event, so that we can do our magic in France. I'm sure you'll have a lot of French players.
Perfect. Yeah. They should come in line like next 2 weeks, so I'll let you know.
Yeah, so that you can see in advance how many people are coming, right? It's easier if the earlier you know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to start like 6-7 months ahead. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, we should be okay. I'm going to try and do an Old World and 40K event as well in the same time, in the same event. So do have like a big. My goal is to have it like at least once a year, and then have it like grow to almost like a con kind of thing, where we have like maybe Star Wars come in or some other stuff, and we have multiple rooms where games are happening, because it's a big hotel. You don't have to leave the hotel to have a great weekend, like with the bar and the restaurant and stuff. So I think it's a great place to do something like that.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a whole experience.
Yeah.
So I love it, and I'll check, but I think I'll probably be there too.
Yeah, it would be nice, man. Always good to have you guys. It started with David and Christophe 3 years ago, when we did when we only had like 50 people at an event, and they came over, and then after that they just brought everyone.
Yeah.
So that was great to see.
Yeah, it's so fun to be there. All right, so I think we're going to wrap up that section, and the next section is your carte blanche. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, so
Of course.
there you go. You can go. This is your carte blanche.
Yeah, hopefully the chat can get involved as well. But you know, you and me have been talking about code of conduct, right? As people maybe have saw on Twitter after this year's World, there were a couple of situations during the event where playing clean and playing with intent was maybe over exaggerated or taken too literally. And right now, I'm working with some people, among which you, Nicholas, to see if we can like maybe write a code of conduct. And now maybe it sounds a little bit too dramatic right now because I think out of we had 208 people play, 6 games, so that's like a lot of games, and we had like 3 or 4 situations where it happened, so it didn't happen that much. But I think having a code of conduct in general for the wargaming community, or at least for my own events and worlds, would be fantastic. So if people have ideas about that, feel free to reach out. But I would love to have a situation where everyone plays with intent. I was wondering, Nicholas, what your opinion is about tournaments. Let's say we do worlds next year, but every table gets a pool of 30 dice, and both players use the same dice. What's your opinion about that?
I always felt like this would be the way to play the game, to be fair, because it's always weird when you think that there is a problem with the opponent's dice, because he might just not know, or it might just be you, because in one game you probably don't throw enough dices to be sure.
No.
But there has been numerous problems about certain sets of dice, and it's always feels bad if your opponents really roll well and you're like, I don't know, but it feels like it's a lot, but it might just be just luck because it happens. And yeah, I think giving 30 dice is the way to do it. That's what I would want to happen, but obviously it's a bit more expensive to do. Yeah, I really would love that because I just want to play with the same dices and everybody's happy and there is no suspicion involved, no friction on those, because whenever there is some sets of dice that I know recognize, you're like, can we play with all of my dice or all of your dices? And it's always a tough discussion, and
Yeah.
I can understand that.
Someone might feel that you don't trust them, even though you've just had similar like past experiences. But I don't agree with you actually that it could be expensive, because right now all of the world's players are paying 50, 60 bucks to get like 50 dice to trade away. But if you have a pool of dice you're playing with, you only need to buy maybe 30 dice because you're going to trade them with other countries, but you're not actually rolling with them, so you don't need that to keep that many yourself. So we could ask the teams like, hey, instead of paying 60 euros a person for dice, how about you pay 30 to whatever Baron of Dice or whatever you're getting your dice from, and we put 30 into a pool, and everyone does that, and we can just buy the dice, and we can just supply them at the tournament, or we just ask Baron of Dice, hey, make a generic AOS Worlds dice, and everyone has to buy, every player has to buy like 15 of those dice or whatever, to roll with, and then you can keep them as like a memorabilia a little bit. But because you're buying less country dice, maybe it doesn't have to be more expensive.
Yeah, I agree, and I really like it because I also felt like for instance, in the French scene, a lot of events are doing thing yearly. So you have events on 1 year, and the same event is running 1 year after and after and after. So it's kind of like an initial spending, just like your tables, your terrains, your battle mats, and everything. The problem, I think, for the French and maybe for all TOs is like it's on top of something and it's not necessary. So I really would love that personally. And yeah,
I mean, the dice can be as expensive. You can buy like super cheap, like you can just buy the wooden dice or whatever. As long as everyone's rolling the same ones, it doesn't really matter. Obviously, I personally I would probably get some cool ones, but you can make it as cheap or expensive as you want. But it is something I've been talking about with some of the captains for Worlds, and be like, hey, What do you think? So that's something we could maybe consider. And I I just want people to understand that there's limits to what we can do, but there's also things we can do to make it all easier for each other, like rolling the same pool of dice, being super clear on intent. Like I know you as a player. I've seen you play in Atlanta and at Worlds. I've seen you play against Christopher from the Danish team, who's similar to you, very clear, very intentional. But I've also seen players that almost try to weaponize that aspect of the game where you say, "Hey, no take backs" or something. I've been called over to games before where someone, especially in third edition, someone said, "Hey, okay, so this is mid my start of the hero phase. What do you want to do?" And then immediately say, "Oh, wait, I have to pick a battle tactic," and then their opponent being like, "Oh no, you're too late now." Nothing in the game has happened, and those are the situations I really want to get out of the game because that has nothing to do with clean play, intentional play. It is trying that's a gotcha for me, and that those are things I would love to get in a code of conduct, but it's very hard to put into words. And I think fourth edition is helping with that because you get less of those moments, like you said before. But yeah, I'm curious to know how people, especially in chat and you as well, feel about if there was a code of conduct for Worlds, if that's something you would maybe push in your local communities as well.
I definitely think, at least on the French scene, that if you did publish something for Words, it would have an impact because for like a few years now, we take a lot from what you do for Worlds. It can be layout, it can be scoring, it can be a lot of other things, and I think for the French scene, it would really impact and help the TOs about what to do. And yeah, I think I do agree that weaponizing everything is a bad way to win. And the problem is, some people did that because it gave the person a slight advantage in the game, which is real, but it should not happen.
No, no, and it's both your responsibility to make sure all the rules are being played. So
Yeah, I agree with what you said about fourth being easier on that side because there is less phases, there is less timing in a phase, so you can really do a lot. But yeah, I feel like it's a bit tough. And as you said to me that the most important thing to do is if you feel like there is some of those gotcha moments, just ask a referee and
yes, that
people.
was my next point actually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
so go ahead.
No, perfect bridge. I've had discussions at Worlds or at different tournaments where people are like, "Hey, did this just happen in my game?" And I like no take backs, but this guy was doing this and that, and I just said, "Why didn't you call a ref? Just call a ref because there's no ref under my wing or at Worlds is going to facilitate this kind of behavior. Of course, if you have to do a certain action and you're 2 phases later or your entire turn later, yeah, there's nothing we can do. But if we have the feeling, if let's say your opponent has done that twice in the same tournament already, um, you need to help us help you because at that point let's say whatever this guy's name, I don't know, let's call him Johnny. He's playing against someone and he's weaponized something, and then we get a complaint, and then the next game it happens again, but we don't get a complaint, and then we get one in the fourth round. It's too late. We could have warned him maybe in the second round already and keep an eye on his behavior, but nobody helped us correct this behavior. And um, the fact that your opponent says he or she doesn't really want something or is not going to allow something, that doesn't mean that that's the tournament organizer's perspective on the matter. So always get a ref. I mean, if your opponent hates you for calling a ref at that situation, I don't know, it's probably their problem anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And there is kind of an interesting question in the chat from Lex Le Silex, which asks, when you ask for a ref, on whose clock is it? And it's usually on the people that is calling the ref, right?
Yeah, so at Worlds, when you call the ref, we come over, and if we have the feeling that it's not going to be like a 5-second question, we pause the clock. So it's on nobody's time, but the actual calling of a ref is on your time. But for the events that I normally run, I've been to events where the organizer is sitting behind a desk and the entire tournament, and he's basically more doing an administrative job. At our events and at Worlds, you're going to see a ref team walk around in a recognizable shirt the entire time. So we should be at your table within, I don't want to say seconds, but it shouldn't last more than 10 seconds for us to reach. And unless we get like 20 questions in like 30 seconds, then it's going to be a struggle. But yeah, we do ample round times for that as well at Worlds. So normally we come over, we pause the clock if it's like a weird question or something we really need to look up, or what most of the questions at Worlds are actually, hey, we cannot agree this is in range. I say it is, he says it isn't. I've even had situations where it's the opposite. It was in the benefit of the opponent, but they weren't agreeing. So yeah, at that point we just pause the clock, especially for these types of situations.
Yeah, and I think like that's most of the time it should be why people call refs to check those things, or well, obviously if you have a problem with the rule, you should all the time call a ref just to be sure 100%, because there is some small interactions that are still a bit out there, even with fourth.
Yep.
But yeah,
100%.
I will really I would really like to have a code of conduct, to have a word put it on those kind of stuff, so that players would know that, oh, I can call a ref about that if I feel like I'm being abused by an intentional play or something like that. And I think
it doesn't even have to be abuse.
Yeah.
I mean, it could just be, hey, my opponent says that I cannot go back on this. Is that actually the rule here at the tournament, or is that factual? Because maybe it's your first tournament or it's your second tournament. You haven't come across a situation like this before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Asking about the clock. Did we already talked about the no clock policy from GW? We are not going to talk about that because it's an entirely different topic. Personally, I don't like it.
It's also not my event, so
it.
It doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks on that.
No.
Yep. All right. So let's continue with the community questions. So I have some questions that were sent by people, and also we can also take questions from the chat. So let's start with. I had a question from Pomme de Renette, which asks, "Hello, what would be your advice for someone eager to enter the competitive universe?"
Oh, that's a good one. There's a lot that goes into that. Because if I'm going to assume you're a beginner and you play maybe locally a little bit and trying to get more competitive, the first thing I would probably do is, if you're French, maybe watch a Spoon's streams, because he can give you a lot of valuable information. I would probably look at a podcast called Miscast as well, that gives a lot of great information. And I would definitely just start signing up for tournaments and looking at lists that are doing well. The Warhammer website, for example, warhammer.com, I believe it is, they have like top 3 lists of after every tournament weekend. You can look at those. But if you want to get more competitive, I'm going to maybe give a little bit unpopular advice. Look at let's say you own 2 or 3 armies. Look at what army of those is doing probably the best right now, and maybe win rates. Grab a net list and just start playing, because to become a good player, you also should play good lists at the start. So before you have your own grasp of what type of player you maybe are, what the meta is like, try to see what the good players are doing and trying to see if you can understand what they're doing before you try to completely reinvent the game because it's very hard to do. Maybe it's early in the edition, so maybe you'll strike some gold. But yeah, I would just start playing competitive games, trying to look for competitive players, look for good players, and start playing with them. And it doesn't matter if you get completely crushed because you're going to learn a lot. And if you've lost a game, ask your opponent what they think you should have done differently, or if there was certain points in the game where you've maybe made a pivotal decision that lost you the game, or you know make sure you get all the information you need to become better, and don't be afraid to ask people for help, for tips, and don't be afraid to play the good armies, because that's a really good way to become a better player before you, like I said, before you start trying to do things your way.
Yep. I have Rebrown that asks, "Hello Tom, what is your opinion about French meta compared to other countries?" I'm not sure you have a lot of opinion on that, but if you do.
Well, what I've noticed, but I'm not sure if that's correct, is that French community likes horde armies more than some other communities. So last couple of years at Worlds, the amount of squig, I've seen a lot of players play a massive amount of squiggers, play the zombies, play the ghouls, that I've not seen maybe that much from other communities. So I'm not sure if that's true, but I've had the feeling before where I felt that horde armies were more popular in the French meta, even though that might not be true. But I know about 50 French players, I think, and because I see them at Worlds or at my own events. So I don't know how many AOS players there are in France, but probably not more than 50. So I don't know a lot about the meta, but I do know that a lot of those 50 players are pretty competitive players. So I'd like to think I know a little bit about the French meta, but I think, yeah, the horde part is something that stood out to me, but it might not be true. It might just be a couple of players that always play horde, and that's why it stands out to me. Other than that, let me think. You always play a couple of things differently. For example, Adrien playing the Nurgle. Um, right now was a nice touch. Miladin playing Fac. I like that. Like a lot of the other top teams always go for the obvious picks. So yeah, I like that. What I always tell people about the French meta, worlds related, is I don't think, apart from maybe the Danish team, but maybe not even them, none of the teams are that well prepared as the French team is most of the time. Like the support the team has and the preparation they do is unmatched, I think.
Yeah, thanks for that. I have Russell Crowe, which that
Yeah,
asks,
I do.
what is it about the Australian jersey that makes it your favorite of all?
So Russell sent me his jersey. I'm bet rep as well. So a shout out to Russell, or Nick, his actual name, because he sent it all the way from Australia. So it's really dope, and it's the right fit actually. So it was the right size for me as well. But yeah, I do like it. I got Joel Graham's shirt before, and I just like the yellow and green combination. It's just super dope. Unfortunately, they didn't win best jersey at Worlds. That was a German team because of the big eagle on the shirt. But yeah, thanks, Ross. I really like the shirt, and I'm going to wear it on the channel soon. So thank you.
Nice. I have Atarax, which asks, what's your favorite army model-wise, and what's the one you dislike the most?
Ah, okay, very unpopular opinion, but I really hate Gits. I
Oh,
uh,
really?
I know a lot of I know a lot of people love Gits, and maybe you're going to lose half your viewers for the stream now, but I just think they're too cartoony, too. If you look at, let's say, you grab a Luminous or a Corn, they're so serious looking, so yeah, I don't know. I think they're a little bit too goofy or something. It's just not my style at all. So you won't really see me playing Gits at all. Model wise, what I do enjoy is what do I like? I have certain models I like. For example, the items with like the cloak. I really like the Idleness range, but I'm not that big an elf player myself. So yeah, I think maybe Ideneth could be one of my favorite model ranges in general. But yeah, I think the Gits I don't really like, and ogres I don't mind them. I just find them a bit dull. Same for Fire Slayers. Like I think you can make a couple cool Fire Slayers heroes, but then when you see an entire army, it feels a little bit dull for me. But yeah, I wouldn't enjoy painting 80 Mohawks.
Yeah, and it feels like the only game in Fire Slayer is find out which one is Gotrek, because that matters.
Not anymore as well. But
It's
well,
not
maybe a
that
little bit, but
bad.
a lot less.
It still hits like a truck.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, he's a little bit less survivable. He doesn't like covering fire either. But yeah, yeah. So I think Ideneth. I like Ideneth. The Ideneth range a lot. I like this. I like Galariel but Belthanos, for example, I find a little bit weird because he's kind of standing on the wings. So like, how would that fly? It's kind of it doesn't make sense to me. But so my favorite model range, yeah, like I said, probably Ideneth. I started with Beasts of Chaos because I think that was one of the most awesome looking armies, but I'm just not going to regard them in any of these discussions for now because, yeah, they're going to disappear. So.
It's kind of
I
a
can't hear
side
you anymore.
question. How did you
Yeah,
feel
you're back.
about how GW handled the Beast of Chaos thing for this year? Because obviously, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're kind of a Beast fan, and
Yeah.
I know it's been sad times, and I understand that. Are you better? Are you okay now with that? What's your plan on for the future about Beast of Chaos? Are you trying to? Will you try to play them in Old World, or will you just switch to something entirely different?
Yeah, so Beast of Chaos was my first army. I've played that for a long time, but with most people, like most people have with the first army, it was painted very badly. I didn't thin my paints, and at some point I sold it. And then I actually bought it again just to be able to redo it, and I sent it to a commission painter. And then for some reason, I heard a rumor that they were going to cycle them out for 3.0. So I don't know why, but I decided to. Someone actually made me an offer on the army, and I was just like, oh, I heard this. I heard this rumor. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of it. So I sold it again, and then last year the Dutch Worlds team wanted to play a Beast of Chaos, but they didn't own it. So we kind of made a deal where we bought the models and had it commission painted, and then we would buy it with the channel because I know it was starting a channel. So I bought Beast of Chaos, like 5,000-6,000 points, commission painted, and then Beast of Chaos actually cycled out, which was close after I found out, or close after I bought the army. So one of my friends, Lex, the newly Dutch captain, he's going to take over, or he already has taken over, bought over the army. He needs to get the last couple of models from us, and he's just going to rock it for the next year. I'm not sure what his plan is going to be, but because I don't have the aspirations to play Old World, for me it just was a logical decision to make. But yeah, them being cycled out kind of hurt a little bit, but I also understand it was an old model range. I just like Bone Splitters. I think Bone Splitters was a more logical choice to cycle out. Sorry to some of the Bone Splitter fans out there, but that was a very limited range. But yeah, I've made my peace with it. But yeah, I would have preferred them to stay.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think it's more like a choice of redoing a new army or refreshing a range, and it's kind of they chose to just get rid of it and doing maybe a new army. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it's always sad times, and I think the sacrosanct thing felt a lot worse.
Mm.
I think.
Yeah, especially now I've seen the new models from the new book, and it's just like, oh, we've cycled out the what are they called, the Griff Chargers? No, not the Griff Chargers, the other ones, the cats. So here are some new things that are almost the same thing and almost the same name again.
Yep. A bit weird. Well, I can understand the decision. It's just, it felt bad. But at least
Yeah,
they warned in advance.
yeah, but
At
there's
least.
also like, are there like 8 new heroes now or 6 new heroes? Like, I don't know. The last thing Stormcast need is more war scrolls, in my opinion. I
Yep.
don't like a. They used to have 65 war scrolls. I think now it's a little bit less, but still, it's yeah, it's rules bloat, war scroll bloat.
Yeah, I think they should continue to merge war scrolls like they are kind of doing. Like every like fulminator, concussor, just merge everything. Those kind of
Yeah.
old stuff. Oh yeah, well, is it legal in official tournament to proxy your old Stormcast into new units? I think it depends on the TO. What would be your ruling on that?
Well, if he means with an official tournament, if it's a Games Workshop, then probably not, because officially the Sacrosanct is still match play legal. So you would be doing a direct proxy. Myself, I've had people that asked me if they could use the Drek line. That's the name. If they could use the Drek lines as fulminators, I have no real problem with that, as long as you're very clear with your opponent. And regarding the heroes, I mean, if it's holding a staff, who knows if it's an ordinator or an imperator or nobody knows. So I would not have a problem with it myself, but it needs to look a little bit alike. Like I wouldn't want someone to have a unit of, I don't know, things with a bow suddenly become a unit of liberators, like the Judicators being liberators, something like that. I might have a problem with that because it might be confusing. But yeah, I mean, I think that's logical.
Yeah, I think most tournament organizer are going to be really cool about that because
Yeah,
it's just your toys. As long as it's clear with
exactly.
your opponent, just bring your toys.
Yeah, exactly. So just make sure you're clear about what things are. What I would have a problem with is if you're actually playing a unit of Sacrosanct. Let's say you're playing 6 Drek lines or 3 Drek lines, and you're also playing them as fulminators. Might be, like I said, I think everyone can decide if it's potentially confusing or not.
Yep, that seems fair. We have another question from events on the chat. Are the tournaments you organize competitive, beginner friendly, or is it more for veteran players?
I think you're maybe a better person to answer that. I think it's a mix because I have a lot of players that play their first tournament. Uh, that have my tournament as one of their first tournaments. I have a lot of intermediate players that come every time, but I also have a lot of competitive. So it depends on what your expectations are. If you are asking me like, hey, is it, as a beginner, can I do well? I don't know. You're probably going to lose maybe round 1 and 2, and then you're going to be in the swish pond with like your peers, and then you'll be fine. But yeah, it depends on what you're looking for in the tournament. But I think if I'm looking at the vibe of the tournament, I think it's very welcoming, if I may say so myself. I've never had any issues, and I think that we have people from every part of the hobby. So we have people that they do a lot of time painting 1,000-2,000 point army, and they play with that for a while. And the list might not be very good, but they've put a lot of time into that. But they're just there for the hobby scores and the hobby awards. But we also have people that are practicing for worlds, so it's a big mix. But I think maybe Nicholas, you've been to my events. It's easier for you to answer that maybe than for me.
Yeah, I'd say it's beginner friendly, and as are most events, because I don't recall having an event where there was only great player, or events where there is only beginners. I don't think that exists. So you always have a wide range of skills, and as
Yeah,
events are playing Swiss rounds, your first game might not be easy or might not be really interesting. And even if you lose, you can still progress and still ask the opponents, which is kind of the main thing. And after that, you can enjoy your tournament a bit later during the Swiss, because if you're really good player, you're gonna find a really good player after a few rounds. if you're a beginner, you're going to find the other beginners after a few rounds. So what I would say is like, yes, definitely. And
Yeah.
you really have to begin somewhere. And I think somewhere close is always a good bet, because if you have any issue, it's always better to be close to home. But if you like to travel, Tom's events are top notch, and you'll love it. Everybody is really welcoming, which is also true in most events, to be fair.
Yeah,
So
this community, I mean, if you say you're a beginner at the start of the game, you could play, Spoon is the world champion right now. If you tell Spoon you're a beginner, he's not going to lure you into all these kinds of traps and going to and like mentally destroy you because you're a beginner and he wants the easy win. Like, this community is very welcoming. So if you're a beginner, make sure to state that to your opponent, like, hey, it's my first tournament, maybe my second tournament, it's my 10th game or whatever. Yeah, they will be very welcoming, and like every community, you might have a couple tryhards, but yeah, I don't think you're gonna really encounter those people a lot, especially at maybe the beginner tables. Um, what you said about formats is important. For example, my invitational that I do 4 times a year, I wouldn't go to that if you're a beginner, but it's an invitational, so you won't be there anyway because yeah, this might sound harsh, but I'm not inviting a beginner to a tournament with the 20 most competitive players. So and if you're in doubt, always just email the TO. Hey, I'm a beginner. Do you think it's a great idea to come to this tournament, or do you have like a different tournament format that might be more suited? If you're a beginner and you don't really want to play super competitive, you could also look at maybe some doubles events. I don't know if there are a lot of doubles events in France, but we have a couple in the Netherlands. Super friendly for beginners and casual players.
yeah, and something really important is that at first, well, this is my experience. At first, you go to events to compete, and I still do. Whenever I go to an event, I'm going to be first. But I find out that after like 3 or 4 years of going in a lot of events, I mostly like going for the people, for the community.
Hmm.
And
Definitely.
the event that I enjoyed the most are the events where the community is the most welcoming, where um, I find friends that I didn't see for like a long time, and I can talk with them finally. And you start by just going alone, kind of alone, and after a few events, after a few months, a few years of doing events, you just build up a huge and welcoming community. And after that, my main motivation on going into events are the community first now.
Yeah, that's also my main reason to TO. To be honest, I especially the international event, Atlanta. Atlanta for me, like I have to take a week off of work. I have to travel all the way there, not see my family for a week. So it's a lot of time, and it's also a big hassle on my family. Like I have a daughter and a wife. Um, but I see people in Atlanta. I only see once or twice a year. The people flying from Australia, Canada, from everywhere all over the world, and it just really felt like I've made such a big group of friends, which is really one of the reasons I TO. I've made some of my best friends, like Nick, who I do the channel with now. I regard as a great friend, and Ryan and Kai and the other guys that I've all met through the hobby.
Yeah, that's just what I love about this. Hi Frogold. We already talked about that a bit earlier in the video, so you'll have to watch the replay to know. So we're going to go to the last section, which is a tier list. But we're going to do something different than usual because it's way more fun. And we have Tom, which is an amazing tournament organizer. So we are going to rank which faction are the best to TO and which are the worst to TO. So on any criteria that you want, Tom, it's your tier
All
list.
right.
So you can explain your choice when we place those things, and you can even rename the categories if S, A, B, C, or D are too boring, which they are. You can rename those if you want to. It's your tier list. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah. I'll keep the names. What I'm going to do, let's say, what's the best way? I think the S tier is going to be the best ones to TO, then I guess, and then the lowest tier is going to be the hardest one to TO, or we have to turn it around and say which ones are the hardest. But I think going from easiest as S tier to lower is best. It's going to be a fat middle though, because a lot of armies are kind of the same, like quality-wise to TO. So, but we're probably going to get some interesting discussions from people in the chat, maybe.
Yeah. And you can start with any faction.
Let me know which one. If you start them off, I'll just give them an.
Let's start with Ogormo tribes.
Yeah, ogres. Pretty straightforward, I'd say. I don't see the monster trucks a lot anymore, unfortunately, but I don't really get any questions about that army. So I would probably put them in. Maybe they are actually S tier. I mean, if I haven't gotten a question about an army before, they're pretty easy to TO, right?
Yeah, I mean, you only play one war scroll, so
yeah,
one war scroll and 2 faction abilities, and that's it.
Exactly. So there's not much to not get.
Perfect. Cities of Sigmar. Oof.
Yeah. Let's say I would put them in. Let's see. I would put them in B because the orders can be a little confusing sometimes, especially with, for example, the deep strike they can do with the what's it called again? The Callous and Toll.
Yep.
So they have some layers of rules. Yeah, so I think B is a good place for them to be.
Did you encounter a lot of cities or not?
No. Yeah, what's a lot? Yeah, not I've seen 3 tournaments at this point. No, I haven't really seen them a lot.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, it feels like people are not really liking what they see in cities, and I think cities can be good.
The problem with cities is, I think if you want to make a good list, but this is my personal opinion, I think you're going to need to invest in some of the kits that have a very big possibility of not existing at some point in time.
Yep.
So, because I like the human part, like the aesthetic of it, but it's not round enough. I think it lacks a bit of a hammer unit. So yeah, but yeah, for example, and also the what's the ability called, where like where they don't move, so they get certain buffs. It's that with the orders.
Yeah.
It's just been a couple of confusing situations. So that's why I picked a B tier here. But
sure.
I love the army's aesthetic. I just wished, but yeah, this might be unpopular as well. If they're going to throw out the kits for the elves and the dwarves, why not do that at the same time you did the sacrosanct and the beast of chaos and the most? Get everyone mad at one point in time, and then
that's why I think they will keep the whole range until 5th. I think.
Yeah, that could possibly be, but still, I mean, I don't want to buy, build, and paint kits for 2 or 3 years.
Oh yeah, and also I don't really like those kits, so.
Sure, I mean, yeah. I mean, some of the like I personally like the Dreadlord on Dragon, but a lot of people hate the kit. But I think it's kind of cool. But yeah, I see your point.
Yep. Westmo's tier list is about the easiest armies to TO and the hardest army to TO. So the more questions Tom has had about some armies, we'll put them in D tiers, and S tiers is for army when you don't ask a lot of questions, like Ogormo tribes when you have only one war scroll. Night Hunt.
Yeah, Night Hunt are definitely at the bottom. They've gave me a lot of questions, especially because a lot of people are still unclear about. I mean, maybe it's not really an army rule. Maybe it's just people not understanding the rules very well. So maybe they don't go into like let's put them at B. Maybe not there. Maybe they're not C. But a lot of people really have trouble understanding how many units you can pick to do an ability. Can I do an ability only once? Does it say the army part or not? So it is an army I've got a lot of questions about. I mean, even some of the French Night Hunt players were only charging out of combat with one unit at AOTC because they didn't know they could do it multiple times, or it was the run in charge one. I don't remember, but so even a very experienced player still had trouble.
Yeah. Well, you only have question during the first hour of the round, to be fair.
The Night Hunt one, for example, this one was around 5. So they had already been playing and it was a mirror match. One of the players was like, "I'm gonna do this," and the other guy was like, "No, you already did it over there." And he's like, "Yeah, but I can do it army wide." And then that's when he found out his own army could do it army wide.
Yeah, but I was saying you only get the question during the first hour because after that the opponent is tabled.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Maybe it might be a slow play.
Yeah. Slave to Darkness.
Good one. I've had some Bellicor questions, like what are actual abilities that he stops. But other than that, yeah, I'd probably say let's do A.
Yeah.
There's not really much confusion. Like you play the Archeon list, which is pretty straightforward rules-wise.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. There's nothing really. The main question the main question that I've had with the Archeon list is that, you can do battle tactic if Archeon gives you the double? And that's the only question I have.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that A is okay. A tier is fine.
Let's do Iron Jaws.
That's definitely S tier. There's not much in that book that's very hard to understand, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The Mighty Destroyer is easy.
Yeah. I think that's also their main problem. It's maybe too easy to understand. I mean, I've got to say something. I mean, for destruction players, that's probably a good thing. But
yeah. Iron Jaws has some problems, which some have been fixed. I like I think the war fix is a really good one. I really like it because before you were like, I need to send everything in one turn, and that doesn't fit the fact that your whole army is hitting on 4 and you only have one all-out attack. And now you can do waves, which feels a lot better for the army.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Nurgle.
Ooh. I did get a couple questions about that. Mostly, let me think. I have to think about that a little bit. It wasn't that. Thinking about their faction rules, it's not super hard to understand what they do. Talking about Nurgle, I do think it's a book that's very like the 3.0 book, where it came out and everyone was like, eh. And it's starting to grow on people now, I feel. I don't think it has the power level it had in 3, but it's definitely not as bad as people say it is. But that's not really relevant to this. But I haven't had many questions from them, so let's put them in A as well.
All right. Beast of Chaos.
Yeah. Even though they have like a super unique rule with the null deploy, it's not very hard to understand.
Yep.
The Unger Raiders one is misplayed a lot because it's once per turn army. So I've fallen into that trap myself, where you shoot with multiple units in one turn from the side, but you can't. But that's just reading. It's just reading and then seeing that it actually doesn't work like that. So let's put them in A as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of A and Bs, people, just so you know, because
Which
there's
is
not a
good.
lot of.
Which is actually a
Yeah,
good,
that's good.
advertise for the game. Cruel Boys.
Oh, Cruel Boys, I'll put in C, mostly because their teleport and their double teleport, and trying the same unit and stuff like that. It gave a lot of questions. Slippery Scumbag has given me a lot of questions.
Yep.
People not understanding the buff is only to not moving is in your own turn. Yeah, so I think that's a good tier for them.
Yep.
All
And
tricky
also,
armies are giving me a lot of questions.
And even the fact that if you miss your dirty tricks, does the next roll is the next roll worse or not?
Good
Which is a
one
big
as
one.
well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Slanesh.
Also pretty easy, I'd say. Just going through the war scrolls. Yeah, they don't really have a lot. They don't have a lot of like actual tricks. The fiends can make you fight last and stuff, but it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's put them in A.
Sure. Lumineth.
Very tricky army, but do I get a lot of questions about them? Tactless is pretty clear. Dawn Rider is pretty clear. Hurricane pretty clear.
I think the River Blade are a bit finicky.
Yeah, everything with a teleport gives me rules questions, but that's not really the teleport. It's just faction terrain and manifestations.
Yeah, I think you will have less Lumineth question because everybody's playing in it, so people are used to it. But I feel like they have a lot of specific rules, like the Shrine Luminor moving.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe put them in B because of the shrine, and that's actually a very good one. And also
I can charge with my Lumineth Shrine.
I had some questions before about the Sanctum and the spell, even though I can't recall what it does, but I did get a couple questions about that as well.
Yeah. Seraphon.
Yeah, that's probably S because there's really nothing weird going on in that book.
Yeah, it's pretty much straightforward, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I think Seraphon are actually good. You don't have a direct correlation between good and tricky, which is cool because there is a thing for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Bone Reapers.
They do have a lot of phases to do abilities in, but also that it's been pretty clear. So I would also put them probably in A.
Yeah, that feels fine. Everything's just written.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lot of war scrolls, and they're just strong.
Yeah, did you see the list Colin played with the 3 crawlers? I find that very interesting.
Yeah. We played against it, and I think we lost 40-0. The matchup was not that good. Yeah, it was a bit of a curveball because we had no clue what to do with that, and so we sent Adrien with no goal on that. But we did not expect to win. But we did not expect the 40-0.
No. Hadrian's list was something that it's going to stick around for 5 turns most of the time and have play.
Yeah, that was the goal of the list.
Yeah.
Fire Slayers.
I think I'm going to put them in S because I don't think I've had a single question about them.
Really?
But I only have seen 2 players in my 3 tournaments play them. So.
All right. Because if I had to pick, I don't think I would put that at S, but it's your tier list.
Yeah, but the problem is I don't have enough experience maybe to judge them. Maybe that's the thing. So maybe they shouldn't really be in the tier list. But if you're asking me, did they give me trouble yet? No.
All right, that's fine by me. Deepkins.
Pretty clear. They do have a lot of like the deep strike and teleport back. I would put them in B because, for example, the general rule, like you have to put units down before turn X, but then if you put them back in the sky, it resets. Stuff like that can be confusing. So yeah, that's probably where I would put them.
Yep. KO.
Yeah, that's definitely the lowest tier we can get.
So D.
I don't think. Yeah, that's if we could make something lower, it'd probably be K tier because of Carrot One. But yeah, that's I think I love. We've spoken about this before this stream. I love the KO aesthetic, but I just don't. They're just a TO's nightmare to understand. Like every time a new book or new edition comes out, I have had to grab the KO book and read it 3 times to really understand what's going on.
Yeah, but for fourth, I really love that every model has to be on the table.
Yes.
At least you can see who's dead and who's not.
Yeah, definitely agree. I've had people in the past, they've asked me with Beast of Chaos as well, but I've had people ask me if they needed to bring all their Thunderers because they're going to be in the boat. And it's like, yeah, well, you boat might get shot. So, yes, you need to bring them. But the fact that they're asking that is not good.
Yeah. Imagine just coming with 2 boats and that's it.
Oh, you had the meme in England, right? Where I don't think he actually did it, but there was a player, I won't say his name, but he was playing the Beast of Chaos with 1 Great Bray Shaman and only Unger Raiders for the rest of the list. And he would just put the Great Bray Shaman in his pocket, go to the event, null deploy, put it down, and just say, hey, my Raiders are all going to shoot, and then die in turn 3 because I won't put them down anyway. So I didn't even bring him.
Yeah, that doesn't feel good.
No, I don't. Like I said, it's a meme I heard. I don't know if it actually happened. Lex knows the guy who's in the chat. I don't know if she's still in the chat, but so he might be able to tell us if it actually happened. But yeah, that's interesting.
Hopefully it didn't.
No, hopefully not.
Gloomspite Gits.
Pretty clear.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the bouncy part yet, like the Boing Rods and the Squig Harpers. I haven't seen them a lot because it's mostly trolls or Squig Herd.
Yep.
But I don't think they have any like problems. So let's put them in. Let's put them in A.
Yep, makes sense. Daughters of Cain.
Let's put them in B because there has been some confusion about the that's already FAQ'd now, but the what's it called, slaughter
Yeah,
ability of like
the 1 CP
about the army wide part. Yeah, that one. So yeah, so let's punish them a little bit for that one.
Yeah, it would have been easier if that thing was on every war scroll.
Yeah.
Sons of Behemoth.
Are they S? Probably.
Yeah.
The only confusing part was the picking. People had to wait a little bit before understanding that they could bring every manifestation because they could pick them at the start of the game. But yeah, so let's put them at S.
Yeah. Sylvaneth.
Definitely next to Caradron, but that's not actually the faction rules. It's the freaking Wildwood phase. The models are wonky. People are using or not using the leaves there. the new rule saying you can set them up outside of 1 inch of different terrain makes for very annoying things to TO, like climbing. I hate climbing rules. So yeah, definitely bottom tier.
Yeah, that's fair. I think climbing has gotten better, but it doesn't feel right.
No, I had a good question the other day. Maybe give your perspective, because let's say you're playing a big base like Archeon or whatever, doesn't matter, Stonehorn. You have a tree. It's unstable, so you can climb it and go down the other side. But let's say there's another tree which is 2 inches from the first tree, so your base doesn't actually fit in between the trees, but you don't have the movement to cross both trees. Now what?
Good luck.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just, I don't know. I hate climbing.
Yep. Zinch.
I mean, Destiny Die is always confusing, but they've done that pretty clearly. I love the fact that you cannot countercharge. That would have been a big mistake.
Oh yeah.
So let me see. Is there something confusing? I mean, the Chaos Spawn could be confusing, but even that.
The pinks and the blues, it's better, but it's still.
I don't think it's hard to TO. It's actually hard to pilot.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's put them in A.
Yep. Corn.
I think S. Their enhancements are clear. Spell prayers are clear. The Wrath Axe actually works now.
Yep. Still bad, but it works.
Yes.
Yeah, Corn is more like it's hard to play against, but there's nothing that you can't really ask. Oh, can you really do that?
Yeah.
Well, the main question I have when I'm playing Corn is, oh, you can redeploy and Murderlust.
Yeah.
That's it.
Karanek cannot move into combat, but he can move out of combat.
Yeah, but nobody's playing him.
That's his ability. I'm playing him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Move out of combat and then Murderlust is actually... And you can move out of combat, redeploy Murderlust, because redeploy isn't actually core.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, actually.
Yep. Stormcast Eternals.
Hard to say because of the new book.
Yeah, but let's say the faction pack.
Yeah, if I'm judging the faction pack, yeah, it's nothing really. I'd probably S.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything. But Stormcast has always been this way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably S.
It's fun because as we're doing this, I'm like, if we were to do the easiest faction to understand, it would have been completely different.
Oh yes, that's a completely different list.
Because Stormcast Eternals are so many war scrolls that you cannot be S.
No, definitely not. Although they are all very easy to understand. The thing is with Stormcast, it might be like 50 war scrolls, but you're throwing 30 in the bin right away anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And sad.
Especially because we were talking about regiments earlier. Stormcast is terrible, this building.
Really? I did not build Stormcast, so I'm not sure.
The regiments, for example, the dragons have to go with the big dragon.
Yeah.
So, and the fulminators have to go with a big dragon, or I believe the fulminator hero. So you can't really make. Let's say you only want the Knight Arcanum and the Exorcist because it's a wizard and a priest. You will only be able to play foot guys. You cannot play the fulminators or the I'm saying it top of my head, so maybe chat will correct me. But I believe you cannot, for example, play that and then have 4 dragons or something in there. It's very limiting.
You have to have like one big guy, like a War Master. Maybe Bastian Cartalos can take things. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
feels
a lot of
right.
them are not good enough, I think, to play.
Well, I mean, I feel Stormcast is strong, but you're right. It's some War Scrolls that do it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then yeah, I don't know if only a couple of War Scrolls are playable in such a big book. Yeah, I don't know.
Fleshito Court.
Pretty straightforward. I've had a couple questions about, they used to be able to put models back in a returned unit, which was their special thing, right?
Yep.
I've seen some players not realize that actually went away, but that's just, again, that's making assumptions or reading correctly. So let's put him in A.
Yep, makes sense. What about Skaven?
Oh, let me think. I don't know actually the index. I haven't really seen the index Skaven part a lot. Now the new book is not very different, so but at AOTC did I get a lot of? I didn't really get many questions. Do you recall anything being unclear in Skaven?
Well, in the faction pack, you had the battle formations that allowed to pile in even if you weren't in combat.
Oh yeah,
but that's gone.
Good one. Yeah, and it was also just not clearly written, in my opinion, what the intention was.
I think it was a typo, but who knows?
Yeah, so let's put them in B for that.
Yep.
Good point.
And Soulblight Gravelords.
Soulblight. Oh, good one. I think Soulblight is going to be one of the new top books. At least I think so, but that's not really relevant to this part. Also, didn't get many questions about that, even though they have a lot of rules, like the returning models, where putting units back differently with different like parameters in what turn you're in. Yeah, your opponent's turn, but it's pretty well written. I think they changed Tergilius right now, which is good. Yeah, so not much really to say about that. So let's say A.
Yeah, feels fine. And we can do Bone Splitters.
Yeah, that's probably S.
Yeah.
Actually, have you read the pack? It's not even that bad.
I don't feel they're bad. I just feel like you're spamming a lot.
Yeah, but that's because you only have 3 War Scrolls.
Yep. and one is
but
better.
Like power through without needing to charge.
Yep.
And I think they also don't look at the wounds.
Yeah.
Difference is very, very good.
Oh yeah. And you can have a lot of wounds that are really quick on the table.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I don't hate that pack. We Kai, my friend at Threshold Tactics, he's a Bone Splitter player. So we have the army. Might give it a spin at some point because it looks really fun. But it's also rolling a lot of dice. It's weight of dice and weight of wounds. So not a lot of tricks except for the power through. But
yeah. So we're done, and it looks good for GW actually, because we have most of the thing in S or A, something in B, and only 3 in C or D. So overall, seems like GW did a pretty good job.
Oh, you're gone for me, audio. Not sure if you muted or if
No,
it's my
no.
connection.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
All right, perfect. Yeah, seems like GW did a good job on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the faction packs were well written. The problems were really moving faction terrain, manifestations, and um, the interaction that they had with faction rules. Having a move or as a manifestation making such a big difference. I think those are just the, the the things that give problems.
Yeah, it felt like a lot of the rules were really tightly written to work in the global context of everything, and the manifestation are just something they added last minute, and it was not well written. It it just didn't feel like the rest of the book, to be honest.
Yeah, it's it's probably not true, but it feels like they finished everything, and then someone came in at the last minute from corporate, and they said, "Oh, by the way, here's the target you need to sell for endless spells. I don't care how, but you need to, we need to sell all these endless spells. They're not going to be available or in stock when we launch, but we need to sell all these endless spells. So we're forcing you guys to come up with something." And now this is what they did. Because I understand not making them fully units because it's maybe going to break the game a little bit, but this is a like gray in between area where it's been terrible to TO. The first couple of weeks were dreadful, like the amount of questions I got, and especially the same ones.
Yeah.
Were terrible. So I made an event FAQ for my first event in August, where I just put all the questions I got. I made like my own mini FAQ already, and even house ruled some stuff, even though they didn't turn out. Unfortunately, GW wasn't in the same mind as me, but so I had to turn some of those back. But well, I wanted to make my first tournament easier for me to TO. So some of the stuff I house ruled, hoping that was GW's intention, and most of them I got right, and some of them I didn't. But yeah, things that are things you need to do as a TO with the start of an edition, unfortunately.
Yeah, you always have the question: can I do not waver with the manifestation? If a manifestation dies, do I do not waver? Can I do seize the center and be in combat with the manifestation? All those kind of stuff.
Can I put a Cron Spine immediate into combat with another manifestation when I summon it? Which, yes, for example, a lot of people don't know manifestations don't actually block other manifestations from being set up, only actual units. So that's one. It's just all these kinds of weird interactions.
Yeah, it would be just. What's weird is I feel like what they had in the Warhammer community article, with like the table, with moving and non-moving manifestations, and was clearer than the rules.
Yeah, I agree. They could have explained this much better with like bullet points instead of written text.
Yes. All right. I think we're good. We're done. Is there anything else you want to change on the tier list, or are you happy with it?
No, I think I'm pretty happy. Yeah. Like you said, it's a testament to the people that wrote the faction packs that it's the curve is looking like this.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm going to put that on Twitter, as I always do, and people are not going to read what it's about and are going to complain. It's going to be insanely entertaining. People are
Yes,
going
that's
to
going to be super funny, actually.
how Sons of Behemoth are in this year. It's going to be so fun.
Yeah, or especially why are crew boys that low, for example.
Yep. It is going to be real fun. All right. It was really fun to have you here. Do you have something that you want to say? Some last words? Somebody to shout? Anything?
Just maybe a shout out to the Threshold Tactics crew for helping me um, start up this channel and being passionate about what we do. And I always appreciate also like content creators like yourself helping the community, because people don't understand that content creators and TOs, we don't do this to because we're going to make actual money, because in the warm community it's very hard to do. So you have to understand that people that make content or TO or do whatever do that because of a passion for the hobby and a passion for the community. So always a big shout out to people that make content like yourself. And I'm looking at I see in my screen here, for example, you need like 60-ish people for like a follower goal, and we have like 61 people here in this chat. So for me that makes very easy math for the people that aren't following yet to just like quickly press that button. Even though maybe most of your streams are in French, that doesn't matter. You can ignore the French streams, but still give the follow and help support Nicolas. So yeah, and it's been fun being on, man. I enjoy talking about Warhammer, every aspect of it. So big part of my life. So yeah, enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thanks a lot. And yeah, I mean, last year when I was in Atlanta, it was the first time I met you, and I've had great conversation. Not long because I was playing so much, but great conversation with you, and I really appreciate that. And that's why I decided to come to your events, and I loved it. So thank you, thanks a lot for that. Thanks a lot for all the work that you do internationally and in Dutch. How is the name of your country in English? Because I know in French, in Netherlands. Yeah, got it.
Bye. It's the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah. So the work that you do, I think, is just great, and the way you judge things, the way you TO, I love it. So always cool to be able to talk to you. I really wanted to have you in an episode because I feel like it's really important for the French community to know that there is a world outside of France for tournaments and for Warhammer, and that the community globally is very welcoming, and that you should really, really, if you can, go outside of your country to meet other people from other countries. Everybody's lovely. Everybody loves going out. And I've had in AOTC last month, there was the first time for some French player going outside of France, and they all loved it. They can't wait to go to do it again. So thank you. Thanks a lot for that. And thank you for coming, because it's just great. And I totally concur on what you said about content creating. Everybody that's doing that is first a passionate person, and so that's very cool. And loved it. Loved what we did together, and can't wait to just see you again and play at your tournaments.
Yeah, thanks, man. Can't wait to see you again. Probably Atlanta's going to probably be the next time.
I think so.
So, and if you ever have an episode where you feel I can fit in, I'd happily come on again. So
perfect. Thanks to all the viewers. Thanks for the chat. Thanks to all the people that subs, to all the people that followed. That helps a lot. And I'll see every one of you on Saturday. I'm doing a live game with Yorin, which you know, Tom. So you're all welcome to come, even if you don't speak French. You can ask questions in English. We'll answer. And have a great night, everybody. And see you on Saturday. Bye-bye.
Bye.